hey, this wasn't seasoned. For a second.
With a different guy.
Send out,
I don't know if it was the same
oh,
company,
by
but
the way, to this
because
year.
if somebody buys
And say,
it
oh,
and
by
invests
the way, if
money,
it's a contract question, I
has to
can
be
answer
after
those.
90
If
days,
it's
you can
inputting
go under
stuff, I
contract,
can, but just say,
convince,
oh, by the way, if
FHA
any
to quote
contract
that.
questions, then
So we went under contract
ask
before
Sherry or
the 90
Michelle.
day.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
So
Okay.
appraisal was done.
So just
For
so
the
they
90
know
days.
what you
It
can
was after
answer.
the 90 day.
Oh, yeah.
Cause you haven't closed and FHA required.
Because of the time frame. So if we
Thanks, Ron.
if we would have went under contract after 90 days, apply.
It's true. He sold the house in Houston, same thing, they had the storm, so he had it done, but then it hadn't closed. So came close to closing, the FHA said do another one. Yes, so when you said that came to me, yeah.
They'll send you the information as far as what you have to do, how much you have to wire. It is done through your bank. They'll send you all the information. I'll double check with him. And then tomorrow you'll just need your ID. But I keep you in the loop.
Oh, we've got a social committee meeting today. At 1.
Oh, really? Oh, dang.
It's on your calendar. Yes.
Who is part of the social committee?
I fell in.
Special people.
Who?
Me, Nina.
Nobody was there last time.
Kariatu.
Yeah.
Me, Nina,
Did you
Kariatu.
know there's a meeting today?
Social committee meeting.
At 2, I think.
No, ma'am,
Oh,
it's at
gosh.
1. It's at 1. It's at 1.
Oh, no, I'm just saying if it's not a 2 summer schedule. I believe it.
It's at 1. So
Why did I just
me,
walk?
Nina, Kariatu, yes, it's over here. Kimberly Frost,
Okay.
Rusty, Christy heads it up. Who else is on the social
Yep, that one.
committee? Mary.
When did I didn't know it was a.
Hey, join,
We were
join us,
invited.
I didn't
go.
know.
Don't listen.
We now want to invite you
He's been
in.
in this office forever.
So then why is he acting he doesn't know?
And he knows the first of every year that we form these committees and we need.
Drama, huh?
Oh,
drama.
You heard me say the first.
All right, so next year, because we need a lot of help on that committee. We do a
He's
lot
in
of
it.
work.
1 o'clock, you're in it now.
Yeah, I spoke to Christy about it. Yeah, next year, we need more men.
Why next year? Why not today?
It's already
It's already formed. The committee's already formed.
We are looking for people always.
Okay.
Last time it was just me and Christy in that room.
Okay, you wanna
You're
jump in at 1 o'clock and see?
No, I have.
We'll send you the salary package. How about
That
that?
little man's not.
want a mint? Yes, please. When somebody says I want a mint to me, I always take it, but that might be a subtle way.
I know.
No,
If
it's just
somebody
with my
gives you a
stomach.
cologne or perfume,
Other
it's
than
really
hungry,
bad.
anybody else?
I'll take some interest in minutes.
I know.
Yeah, they're
that's
from, they're British, we got them in South Africa, but they're from Trader
I'm gonna
Joe's, you
read
know how
the
they
box
carry.
first. Can I read the box?
Yeah, sorry, the box is just like that, it's in my purse, but they're great, I have a
That's
close.
Trader Joe's?
We usually,
Look at the front.
yeah, but you know, their supply, everything is so out of whack, so maybe some, I don't know which one you go to, it depends on location, but the one here.
Right here. I know, they don't have my.
We already have my sugar content in the cheesecake.
Oh, you have your sugar content, right.
Thank you.
I was like,
It was so worth it too.
but they're naturally flavored.
All right, so I'm waiting for Chuck to jump on, and then I'll make him the host.
What?
Amina left her sheet today, I guess she didn't realize it was from her. She's coming back.
He's coming back
Oh, okay, good.
eventually.
I'll put that there for her.
I don't want you to leave. I don't want you to leave.
I'm not leaving.
I
I was going and then I haven't heard from my child, so hopefully they're fine. No news is good news.
Yeah.
I left her breakfast. My youngest is 7, and so I said to her this morning, I said, I can make you toast now, even though you're not ready, or you can do it yourself. She's like, I don't know. So I could tell her. She's like,
Can you guys hear us?
And then we would get to see my answer is yes or no, by the way. My answer is yes.
Okay. Okay.
That's
Mm-hmm. Darling, I don't see Chuck on the call.
I'm on. Can you hear me?
Oh, you are Ambra. Are you Ambra, Chuck?
I think I am, yes.
Okay, so I'm talking to your daughter, Liz. Okay, Liz, I got him. So Chuck, I'm gonna make you the host.
Okay.
So you can share. Yeah, there you go. You are now the host. Oh, he's undercover. Okay. All right. Good. All right. So we've got some people here in the training room, and all right. Bye, darling. Chuck, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. So we've got some people here in the training room, and I guess others are gonna jump on.
Mhm.
All
I
right.
haven't done a Zoom call in so long. I'll probably mess this up, but maybe you can help me if I do.
It's okay. You won't. I know you won't. All right.
It's been about a year since the last time I was on one, so
I know it's been over a year since we've seen you in the market center.
yeah, that's been a while since I've been there.
How you guys doing?
Doing great.
Good.
Just amazed at this market we're in.
Oh my God, I know. Say hello to your lovely bride for me. I haven't seen her in forever.
All right, I'll do that.
Yeah. Is she close by?
She's on the phone out in another room. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She spends her time on the phone most days, so.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys are doing fine. I see India's jumping on and some other people. Okay, India. You guys are gonna get a treat today because we have the creator of the chart masters, Chuck, who just happens to be Liz's dad, Liz Dorch's dad. And Chuck makes this really, really easy. So I can't wait to see what Chuck has to say about this market. So you guys grab your notebooks because Chuck always gives us some easy talking points. Like if you're at a party and you run into a nerd who wants to talk stats, then Chuck will give you an easy script so you don't have to talk stats with the nerd all night long. Does that make sense? All right, so I'm gonna go get my notebook, and Chuck, whenever you wanna start, you are the host.
Are we talking to mostly new people or people who have not familiar with the stats, or just calibrating me on how I talk?
Yeah, mostly new. We've got
Mostly
some
new.
experience here in the room and online too,
Okay,
but mostly new folks.
well, welcome to Keller Williams, those of you who are new. And the stats that you'll have here are things that other offices, other agents and competitors that you'll run into will not have. This is exclusive to Keller Williams, the material that we do. I've got a few charts here that I was going to go through to kind of let you know what all you're getting in case you haven't seen the list. There's quite a list of things that we provide every quarter, and I thought it might be good to do that. I guess I do a share screen to show slides. Is that what I do?
Yes, sir.
Is it working?
Make sure your slides are downloaded and open, and then you can share screen. Yeah, there you go. You're a pro at this.
Are you seeing them? Okay, good. Yeah. we've got, as I say, we got a lot of materials that we provide every quarter, and it's good to be familiar with what all is contained in this, what I call a market information communication system. And the reason I call it a system, it's really a set of charts, a set of products, and a set of presentations that can help you stand out with your clients and customers as you talk about the market. And let's just go through a few of the things that are included in that. There it works. Okay. The primary thing that we do are the quarterly reports, and we'll spend probably more time on that than anything else, but that's what feeds the other products that are part of the system. And the idea is to be able to help you work with your with the kinds of activities that you do daily as a real estate agent. Things like seller consultations, buyer consultations, lead generation. And we have a module included in the toolkit called for self-training that allows you to get a little more information about what's in the products and how you might be able to talk to the various slides that are there. So we'll take a minute to go through some of these, and then we'll spend a little more time on the quarterly report. But this is a schematic that kind of shows the overall flow of materials that we produce every quarter. The green, if you start from the left, the products are basically the lower part. The blue part of the diagram are the quarterly reports. And we do a detached residence report, and we do a condo report, and then we have a couple of separate supplemental reports that we do. That one is focused on in-town, and another is focused on some surrounding counties. We've used 42 FMLS areas as the definition that we use for the metro market of Atlanta. So those reports include all information from all 42 of those FMLS areas. And within each one, if you continue that flow at the bottom for detached reports, there's the quarterly report, which includes all 42 areas. Then in addition to that, there's an area comparison report. And that takes each one of the 42 areas and shows some of the basic stats for each of those areas, as you can begin to then look geographically and see where are there differences in the market, where are some stronger than others, and what have you, and begin to focus on areas that your clients and customers may be in. The same is true for the condo, of course, the quarterly report and then the area comparison report for condos. So then the top part of this chart is talking more about the toolkit, what we call the market information toolkit. And in that package, we've got the buyer consultation, sample buyer consultation, a sample of what a seller consultation might look like, some self-training aids, and some lead generation materials in the form of postcard layouts done in Publisher, and a brochure that we call Selling Choices. That's for someone who may be thinking about going with a for sale by owner or a discount broker or some of those sorts of choices, some things for them to think about as they go through that process. Then within the seller consultation package, as an example, there are actually some of the consultation documents that you get as part of Keller Williams training. A sample of what a grab and go, we call it, listing presentation might look like, which is a abbreviated set of charts that you could use in a listing presentation. And then some help with how you put all of that together and our suggestions for how to use it. And there's also a pre-list kit, which a lot of people feel is really helpful. And that's a set of charts, a set of information that you can drop off ahead of a listing call or leave with your prospective seller, and has a lot of the information that they would want to know about what the selling process looks like and what they can expect to see as they go through the process. So if you look a little more detailed at the quarterly reports, as I mentioned, there's a metro market report for attached and detached, and then the area comparison reports for both of those. In addition to that, we do a monthly report that we call the MMO. It's the Metro Market Overview Report. And there's a set of charts in that. It's about a 25-page, I guess, set of materials that goes out every month at around the second week of the month, every month. So that keeps kind of helps to keep up to date between quarterly reports, fills in information there. And some of the things that to consider about this is, I mentioned that this is a set of materials that only Keller Williams participating offices have that can set you apart from your competitors. And we'll talk a little more about that as we get further into this. The idea is to provide easy to understand graphics to help clients make the right choices for pricing, or if it's a buyer, for making the right offers to have a better chance of having offers accepted. Analytical talking points are on every chart, so you don't have to be the statistician. It's done pretty much for you. Includes previous listing information, which is an important point here because FMLS and other MLSs around the country they're all pretty much the same that I've run into at least. Once a listing is taken off the market for 30 days or more, the MLS doesn't maintain that information the next time that property may get listed. So if you look at what's a property that's sold recently, may have been listed, several months ago before that at a higher price, and for many days on market, that price and those days on market would not be included in the current listing information. So we go back and try to pull that and match up with expireds and withdrawals to get a more accurate picture of what the real sell to list price ratios are and the real days on market. No one else, to my knowledge, does that. So that's we try to get a little more complete set of information for people to make decisions on. We're providing interactive charts, and what I mean by that is you can go in and modify the chart to show a given geography in terms of an FMLS area and a specific price range to drill down and look and customize a chart to show the exact data or the data that best fits the situation of a seller or a buyer that you may be talking to. And that's something that's we think is unique in the market. The quarterly report charts present trends over the last 3 years, typically. And trending is kind of what we're all about with this, is trying to show what's going on in the market today and how that may be different than what's gone on in the recent past or the more distant past. We include some data that we don't think is available in most other places. There's a lot of sources of information, market information, as you've probably seen, but most of it doesn't include the kinds of things that we talk about. We do market share. We do 100% plus, or sales that take place at 100% or more of original asking price. We show data by price range and area, as I mentioned. We talk about price reductions and the consequences of wrong pricing choices that some sellers make. And we also show something about closing cost impacts, which not everyone talks about at the listing, and that can kind of come in as a surprise later on. And of course, the material is all done for you and it saves you time. You don't have to do this. You don't have to look up the information, and you don't have to be a data analyst to come up with some charts that show what's going on in the market. That's our intent. So with the area comparison report, this is just kind of showing some examples. We do, the chart on the left in this example shows that we do each of the 42 areas, a bar that represents a particular measurement for each of those 42 areas. And then there'll typically be a line, vertical line drawn for the overall market. So you can see how areas compare to one another and also to the overall market. And we include a few maps in there that are kind of like color coded that represent what changes that particular measure may have gone through in various parts of the geography that we cover. A little bit about the seller tools. There's a sample of a seller listing presentation. We call it a grab and go because it's a very abbreviated set of charts, and it doesn't go through a lot of things that the sellers may get a little sleepy watching. So we try to keep this down to a minimum number of charts that would tell the story of the market and give the seller information they need to know as they're trying to price and have the best results from their listing. And we have a version that uses some of the Michael Lewis format in the presentation. We have a pre-list package, as I mentioned before. and the Selling Choices brochure that relates to some of the things that you consider as going through the choice of doing it by yourself as a FSBO, or using a discount broker, or using an agent that has the Chartmaster statistics. Buyer tools, again, a sample consultation for buyers, some of the same charts, but oriented more toward buyers, and talking about why the information is of interest to them and why they should consider this, and putting together offers that they might make on properties that they're interested in. Lead generation tools are the postcards, and some people are using, have used the Metro Market Overview, a chart or two from that, reduced it down to postcard size, and used that as a mail out, which can also have some good results of showing that you're in tune with the market. The self-training tools, there's a module we call Chartmaster for Dummies. It's kind of takes a few of the key charts from the presentation and goes into a lot more detail as to what's in the chart, how it's used, and some of the best practices for using that chart. The how-to documents are, again, how to assemble and put together the materials, some of the things that you can use for consulting, and so forth. This is a sample. The next chart is a sample of one of the MMO reports, the most recent one done for the month of August. And this happens to be detached residences. And as you can see, it's a numeric chart. It's not a graph, but it gives a lot of information and allows you to go looking at 17 different price points to begin to customize again, looks at various seller scenarios or buyer scenarios and see what's going on in that price range. It includes things like numbers of active listings, pending listings, the pending ratio, which is kind of the, a measure of how active the market is. And by the way, we're looking at a market that we've never seen before. The 61.2% pending ratio says that of the total listings that were available to go pending, 62% of them went pending during the month of August. So that's a number that's normally in the 30% range, 20 to 30% range. So it shows how active the market really is. The number of closings that took place in August was 5,200 roughly, and very low distressed properties. We're not seeing much of any distressed activity, fortunately, I guess, for most people in the market. Failed listings are those that didn't sell during their listing period. And that's down again at an extremely low point at this point. About 15% of the listings that could have sold during August did not sell. Months of supply, which kind of governs most of the measurements that we look at, is down to an amazing 1 month of supply. And the typical benchmark used is 6 months of supply as being a balanced market. So we're very heavily into a seller's market condition and have been for quite a while. The median original list price is shown here at $379.9 for the month of August. Median sales price, you'll see, is even higher at $385. So we're selling, and the median sell to original list price was 100.6%. So if you've been active with sellers recently, you've probably seen this happen where, most of the houses are going at or above the original listing price in a very short period of time, which was 9 days was the median for the month of August. Another chart that goes along is these are just the detached charts that go with the monthly report. Shows, in addition to the number of actives and pendings, it shows of those that were active or pending, how many of them have already undergone a price reduction, and what's the median of the days on market for those either actives or pendings. And that's the first 6 columns on the chart. Shows us similar information for the numbers sold, 5,245. 16.9% of them had a price reduction. The median days on market was 9. Then it goes a little further and says those that didn't have a price reduction, what did they sell for? And that was 101.8% of original list. And without a price reduction, days on market was 7. So the messages here are that houses are obviously selling very quickly and selling at high percentages of original list price. a sample of the area report shows, this one happens to be days on market that I pulled. This was from the second quarter report, just to give you an idea what the charts may look like. Each of the 42 areas is shown with a separate bar, so you can compare one to another. And the vertical red line is the overall across all price ranges and all areas. So it kind of shows how each area can compare to the overall. Then I've got the set of charts that I think I would use if I were going on a listing call today. And this gets into, I'm going to go through these charts. It's probably a series of, I don't count them, but 7 or 8 charts roughly that kind of show what's going on in the market and also allow you to impress upon the seller that pricing does make a difference. Even when the market is as hot as it is today, there's still things that have to be considered when you're setting the price for your particular listing. In this chart, the first one that we're looking at here is kind of an overview, or you might consider it to be a dashboard type of chart. It shows 4 different measurements of the market. And we'll just, while we're here, I'll talk a little bit about the charts themselves and how they're laid out. In the upper right-hand corner, that red box that you'll see will be on every chart, and that will have a few of the observations that go with that particular chart. So for example, here the upper left-hand corner is cumulative monthly sales, and the red line, which is kind of hard to see because it's almost on top of the black line here, but the red line will, the red bars in all of my charts will be the most current period. So we're comparing here where we are through the month of June, since this is second quarter data. The red line is almost on top of the black line, which was 2 years ago, 2019. So we're kind of following the track that we were on in 2019 at this point, considerably higher than we were last year in 2020. So up in the top right corner, you can see that year-to-date monthly sales are 10% above where they were last year. Median sales price, $390,000, which is up by a whopping 25.8% over last year. Much higher increase. And of course, now in the second quarter data that we're looking at this year, we're comparing to the low point of last year after COVID hit and the big shock hit the market in April and May of last year. So we see some pretty exaggerated differences in this quarterly report that we probably won't see again, hopefully, for a while. But again, lower left-hand corner shows the percent sell to list ratio, which is 3 percentage points higher than it was last year at 101.1% overall. And that's across, these figures are across all sales, all price ranges, and all 42 areas. So again, an overview of the market. Median sales days on market, which is the lower right-hand, shows the 8 days, which was the case through the second quarter, which was down by 70% versus where it was last year at 27 days. So this chart I would use with the client to say, this is what the market is looking like now. It's one that's very unusual. Things are selling fast, they're selling at higher prices and a very short period of time. However, and here's the however, the market in general, at all points in time, has had a kind of an overarching issue, which is called overpricing. And one of the things that you have to be careful of, even in this market, is not setting the price so high that it scares people away. The contributors to the problem of overpricing are often the ones shown here. Often there's many conflicting information sources. Everybody knows somebody that thinks they're an expert in real estate, but most of them are not. Friends, relatives, and what have you are going to tell you where they think you ought to be. Unrealistic comparison to other home sales. If there's a property for sale anywhere in the seller's area, that's the one they're going to compare to and say, well, I ought to be at least as good as that one or higher. So that can lead to overpricing. A lot of different data sources. Ours is only one, but there's a lot of other places. Many of them are inaccurate, unanalyzed, and possibly conflicting. iBuyers, Zillow, Case-Shiller, Terradatum, the data providers, Trend Graphics is another, MLS, the media, and what have you. But the goals that pretty much every seller has. There may be others, but these are pretty much true, I think, everywhere. And that's they want to sell at the highest price and in the shortest period of time. Overpricing reduces the chance of achieving that. And it does that by causing properties not to sell. They're too priced, too overpriced, and people, it just doesn't sell. Or they need a price reduction. And either one of those will cause the sellers to not meet those goals. And your job, my job, if I'm the agent, is to help you avoid those pitfalls and price your property so that you won't run into that. You will achieve the goals. And here's an example, again, from the quarterly report. This shows the total failed listings percentage in the second quarter. And it shows it by price range, but the two bars all the way to the right show the overall. That shows that there were 11.7% of the listings that could have sold in the second quarter did not sell. They failed to sell. And that's down from 25.7 last year at this time, at the same time. So that's an improvement, and there is a very definite improvement. But there still is 12.7% of them, even in this market, that didn't sell. And the reason properties don't sell largely is because they're overpriced. And if you look at this chart a little further, you'll see how much greater the risk becomes as the prices become higher. And this is always the case, and it was last year, and it will always be. More difficult to price higher priced properties, easier to make a mistake, easier to get overpriced and sit on the market for a long time. So failed listings are something you want to avoid. Price reductions are the other. Again, even in this strong market where properties are selling at or above listing price in most cases, 13.8% of them, if you look at the two bars at the far right, 13.8% of them had to have a price reduction in order to sell, way down from the 35.9 of last year. So it's far improved, but still there, and something to guard against if you're listing your property. And that's down a whopping 22.1 percentage points from last year, which is an extremely big change. This particular measurement doesn't usually vary that much. But again, the similar story, as you look at it by price range in these other bars, you'll see that the higher price ranges have a greater chance of being overpriced and having a price reduction. And what does the price reduction cause? Obviously, it causes, I think it's pretty obvious, it would cause a lower selling percent of the original list price. If you reduce the price, obviously it's lower. So again, those who did not have a price reduction, the two bars at the far right, 101.9% of their original list price was the median received by those sellers versus 94.3% of the original list price if there was a price reduction. Also, when there's a price reduction, it takes longer to sell. It takes a while for the price reduction to happen. And when it does, it becomes much more difficult to sell. So the days on market, far right bars again, the red bar is 6 days was the median of days on market, less than a week to sell if you price it right, versus 53, close to 2 months if you don't price it right. So there's a real penalty to be paid, both in time and dollars received to the seller. So looking at the sales in the second quarter in total, this chart is like a schematic that kind of takes you through some of what we've talked about. If you look at the total closed sales, there were 15,761 closings in the second quarter. And of those, looking at all of those put together across all the areas and price ranges, they sold at 101.1% as a median of the original listing price in a median of 8 days. And that's about where most statistics stop. When they're looking at the market, the typical statistics stop with the closed listings in total. We try to break that out to give a little better picture of what's going on. The first series of breakouts are price reduced versus no price reduced. We talked a little bit about that already, but it's 13.8% were price reduced in the second quarter. And when that happened, they sold at a median of 94.3% of sell to list and a median of 53 days on market, compared to no price reduction, where they sold well over 100% in less than a week. Then if you take it one more step, which I think is something again that you won't see anywhere else, but look at those that were listed more than one time and price reduced. The red box on the left, almost 45% of those that were price reduced were listed more than one time. They went through multiple listing periods. And you know how that can take more time. And they reduced the listing sell to list ratio down to 92.7%. Days on market ballooned to 143. If you compare that to the green box situation on the far right, not previously listed and not price reduced, they sold at 102.1% in a median of 6 days. So it illustrates to a seller some of the consequences and the risks that can take place with overpricing, even in markets like we're in today. And this market won't last forever. And these original listing prices over 100% are not likely to be around too much longer. We talked a little bit about the drill down capability, being able to customize the chart to a particular area. And I'll show you a little bit about how this works. This one is already done. And what I did was I entered area 82 in East Cobb. So I said, if you're in on a listing call for area 82 and the price range you think will be in the 300 to 499 range, you can customize the chart to show the statistics for that combination. If you do, there were 208 closings that met those criteria in the second quarter. And they sold at a median of 102.8% of original list price in a median of 6 days. The price reductions there were 15%, very similar to what we saw overall. And the sold to list ratio dropped from 102 to 94.3, days on market to 56. So you can customize this down to show the situation for that particular geography and that particular price range, and show the risks that a seller would have here for overpricing. Well, let's back up one step. Let's go through one of these just so I can show you how to do the customization. When you come to a chart like this that has the little yellow boxes at the top, that shows that it can be changed, and you double click somewhere in the graphic, which I'm doing, and it will turn into an Excel spreadsheet like this, which allows you then to go up and click on this. You can change that area from 82 to, let's say, to 83. And you could also do the same thing for the price range. Click on that and select the price range that you might want to have. Once you've done that, to customize the chart, then you can click anywhere outside of that chart, and it returns back to the PowerPoint format with the new data included. So again, it allows you to customize and to tailor your presentation to a particular situation. What I'll suggest to you as a precaution is, if you're going to do this with a client, be sure you've looked at it ahead of time so you don't get a surprise of some sort once you see it. There may be some situations where there either no sales meet the criteria or very few, and some of the data can look a little strange when that happens. So just beware and always check ahead of time to make sure that it shows something that's reasonable.
Chuck, can you repeat how we would explain that to a customer? I guess the verbiage on how to state that again. I know you said, I think it was 101 point, a median of 101.1% over list price, right?
Yes, that's the median of all those 110 in this particular, I've changed the chart now, but 110 closings in area 83 and the 300 to 499 price range. And of those 110 closings, the median was 101.1% sold to list ratio. And the median of days on market was 6. Of that 110 that closed, 11 of those, which is the next box down on the left, had to be price reduced, 10% of the total. When they did, they got 94.1% of their original list price and a median of 69 days on market. Okay. And of those 11, then if you drop one more step down, the red box says that 5 of those 11 had been listed more than one time. So they'd been on the market. That caused them then to take a further hit on the sell to list ratio to 92.3 and a median of 117 days on the market.
Okay,
The
gotcha.
box, just to finish out the chart, the box next to that was those that were price reduced but had not been through multiple listing periods. There were 6 of those, and their median was 96% sell to list. Days on market were 20. And then going again further to the right, there were without a price reduction, the two groupings without a price reduction. The gray box were listed more than once. They had been listed a few times, but they did not have to go through a price reduction. Either they corrected a defect or they got lucky or something, and somebody, gave them 102.5% of their original listing price, but it took 106 days to get there.
Okay.
So the ones that didn't have a price reduction, didn't go through multiple listing periods, which is the gold standard. We call this chart the game board chart because the object of the game is to get in the green box, I guess. And that's not previously listed, not price reduced. And fortunately, in this case, that was 87% of the listings. So most of them fell there, but you still have to be aware that the difference of those that did not.
Okay.
So then it's a matter of, do you want to sell in 117 days or you want to sell in 6 days? Do you want to sell maybe 2% of your original list price or 101.6% of your original list price? So that's kind of the conversation you can have with the seller is, let's be sure that we're putting ourselves in the green box situation.
Yes, this makes so much more sense now. Thank you.
Yeah, be sure to stop me if there's any questions on this. I guess I should have said that earlier, but then this was one we sometimes call this the bubble chart, and I've even forgotten why, because there's no bubbles on here, but I guess there were at some point. But anyway, it's kind of putting it all together, kind of a chart, and it's taking a hypothetical 100 finalized listings just as a way to talk about it. And it says that in the second quarter, out of every 100 finalized listings, 88 sold, fortunately, and 12 did not sell. That's the failed listings percentage that we've talked about. And in most cases, a listing fails to sell because it's overpriced. But if you take the 88 that sold, 12 of those had to have a price reduction before they sold. So in that case, they took a hit on their original sell to original list price down to 94.3%. Their days on market went to 53 compared to the green box folks down at the bottom, which were correctly priced and got 101.9 in a median of 6 days. So if you put on the left side of the chart, the red boxes together, you've got 24, 12 that failed and 12 that had a price reduction, or 24 out of every 100 listings were at least initially overpriced. And the consequences are shown of either not selling if they were failed listings or selling at a reduced sell to list ratio in a much longer period of time. So the numbers of closings that are shown here are at the bottom, the two numbers at the bottom. That's made up of 15,761 closings and 2,098 failed listings. And that's what makes up the numbers that are on the chart. And this chart is also customizable, and I've done that in the next version in area 82 and the 300 to 499 price range we were talking about, and showed that the statistics for that, for every 100 listings that met that criteria, here's what happened to those. And there were 22, very similar to the overall. 22 out of every 100 were at least initially overpriced. So our job as a seller's agent is to minimize the chance of that happening. Another chart to show the reasons, I guess the risks of overpricing one more time is this chart puts together 3 different charts from the data, that the second quarter data, that shows across the bottom of each chart is the number of weeks that the listings were on the market. And then the statistic that's graphed here in the upper left-hand corner is the number that actually sold in that number of weeks shown at the bottom. And the idea, you can see the steep drop off that says that the best chance of selling is in the first couple of weeks that the listing hits the market. It's fresh, it's new, it gets a lot of eyes, everybody goes to see it. And if it's priced right, it'll sell. This chart on the right, upper right-hand corner, shows the percentage of the original listing price that the sellers received based on the time they're on the market. So you can see the longer you're on the market, the lower the sell to list ratio is likely to be. And the bottom chart under that one shows the likelihood of having to go through price reductions. The longer that you're on the market, the more likely you are to have to take a price reduction in order to sell. So the words on the left side say that if you're priced too high originally, you may miss buyers that would otherwise see your listing because it's priced in a range that they wouldn't want to go to. Agents that represent those buyers can't justify the price. So you miss the opportunity to sell without price reductions in multiple listings if you hit the market at the wrong price. So the message that this is meant to convey is start out with the right price. Don't start high and let them make offers, which some sellers seem to think is a good strategy. That strategy is not in the best interest of the sellers. And once it's been on the market for a while, the so-called stale bread effect comes in. And one of the things that a buyer is going to ask when they find a property's been on the market for quite a while is what's wrong with it? Why hasn't it sold? So the idea is price it right, get it sold, and make the client happy. One more interactive chart. If you're doing a CMA in particular, this can be of interest, but I think it's of interest sometimes to use with a seller. If you have a seller that's interested in charts and data and so forth, which some are surprisingly, but there are some that are, this allows you to get more information in one place that compare the geographic area. If you take the left side set of numbers, it's set up for area 82 and the 300 to 499 price range this time. And it looks at several of the measurements for that area and that price range compared to last year. And the color-coded boxes next to that show the price change, and green means good, red means not so good, and yellow means it's kind of in between. So it allows you to do a quick comparison that says, how do we look versus last year in area 82 and the 300 to 499 price range in each of these measurements? And then the right side of that chart says, in the 300 to 499 price range across all areas, what were the changes? So how does this area look versus all other areas in that same price range is the kind of the message of this chart. So you can look down the list and you can see days on market are down dramatically, and compared to the overall, almost as good, but not quite. Price reductions are down a lot, not quite as good as they are outside of area 82, but still good. Sell to list ratio 4.3 up versus last year, which is stronger than the overall, which was 3.3. So again, you can go down the list and begin to evaluate that area. And particularly if you're involved with a buyer who's maybe looking at houses in more than one area, you can do a quick comparison by area in that price range and see, how does this area look versus another, and where is your investment likely to pay off the most. So again, customizable in the same way. Double click the chart, takes a second for it to think about it. And then you can go down to the bottom and modify either the area or the price range or both. And then click outside, and it returns back to the PowerPoint chart, and the data has been changed. One other thing I mentioned earlier that I don't think many people talk about is what are the percentage of sales that occurred at or above 100%. We've seen that the median now is over 100%, but how many of the actual sales took place at 100% or more? And in the second quarter of this year, 70.1% of all the closings took place at 100% or more of their original asking price, which is a number we've never come close to before. That typically runs in the chart, since I've been doing this in the last 16 years, has run somewhere in the 20 to 30% range, which we thought was pretty good. Now we're at 70.1%. And it's, as you can see, price range makes a difference. The middle price ranges do better at that. There's a bigger demand. There's a lot more sales that take place there. And then as you get into the higher price range, $1 million plus, that percentage falls off, but still 35.2% of the $1.5 million and above sold, more than a third sold at or above the original asking price. So again, interesting information, particularly this one I would use with a buyer. It says, if you got to pay more than original list price to get this listing and it's one that you want, you're in good company, because that's what everybody else is doing too. So it's the market we're in. One last thing for getting it right the first time. The case for getting it right the first time is another interactive chart that you can customize by area. You can see area 82 entered in the little yellow box at the top, in which if you have a disagreement with your seller and they're saying, let's say in this particular case I've entered in here, let's say there's a house in their neighborhood that was on the market for $425 and they think they're at least as good and maybe better than that one. Let's put it on the market for $429.9 and let people make offers. Okay. Your CMA says, no, I think it should be closer to 400 as the market value. So let's crank the numbers that showed up in the second quarter of this year and see how that scenario might turn out. The 429.9 would have received a median of 93.7% of the original list price, or at least they did in the second quarter of this year, which gives you the 402,816 likely sales price and a median of 116 days on the market. Where the suggested price the CMA might suggest is you'd get 103.2%. Those who did sell at that without a price reduction got 103.2%, or 412,800 for the property, and a median of 5 days on the market. So the benefits summary below that says, even though there's a difference in the list price of almost $30,000, the seller would likely net almost $10,000 more from the sale, and do so in 111 fewer days, 3.7 months. And of course, time can equate to money if you factor in carrying costs. So you've got utilities to pay, insurance, maintenance, all of these things. These are just placeholder numbers, of course, in here. But if you add those all up for the difference in time, that's another 6,660, or a 16,644 benefit likely in using second quarter statistics. Doesn't say that's going to happen in every case. Doesn't mean that every seller and every sale is going to turn out like this. But if we look at what's happened as a guide to what may happen in the future, this is what the data would show. So again, price it right the first time is the message, and get the seller the most money they can in the shortest period of time. Any questions on any of this so far, or is it overwhelming?
Helped it be a little bit easier to understand. I was trying to do what is it? Charts for Dummies or whatever it was. I was trying to teach myself how to read it, but it wasn't working out.
Oh. So. What was the problem?
I guess having a hard time trying to figure out once, like if I did understand something, the best way to explain it to my potential client, right? How to best say it to them without confusing them, or how to put it in layman's terms, so to speak, like to make it simple for them, for people who might not be into, statistics and charts and stuff like that. So learning how to use better verbiage to explain it to them is definitely helpful. So this helped. Good. I'm glad it helped. One thing I meant to mention earlier and should have, I guess, is if back up to this one chart, I'm just using it as an example, failed listings percentage.
Every chart in here has, in addition to the upper right corner, the box that has some observations, there is a, if you are in, well, you would be in PowerPoint, you can go to the view menu and click on notes page,
Oh,
and there'll be this will pop up.
oh,
And this will give you, every chart will have this. There'll be a purpose of the chart statement, says why it's in there, and then some observations on that particular chart in this particular quarter. So sometimes that can help you at least understand what the chart says, why it's in there, and why we think it's something people might want to see. And also, in some cases, I guess this one, yeah, this kind of explain, for example, the failed listings percentage is calculated by adding, this describes how I get that percentage. In other words, what it's made up of. And the failed listings are made up of, and I developed my own term called finalized listings, which basically a finalized listings to me is one that the status will not change again. And there's only 3 of those. There's expires, withdrawals, and closed. If you're in one of those 3 statuses, it's not going to change again. An active listing will change. It'll become something else. Pending listing hopefully will close, but they don't all close. So we don't know what's going to happen to those. So I take the ones we know what's happened to and say, of those that could have closed, what's the percentage that did close, basically. That's what the failed listings percent is. So this is an example of, in the verbiage below the chart, I'll go through in some cases the calculation, if there's a calculation shown somewhere on the chart or whatever it is, to try to explain better what's actually being shown there. So hopefully that helps.
Yes, definitely. I saw notes for some of them before, but I honestly forgot that was there. So
yeah, it's
Thank
not
you.
obvious when you look at the charts. It doesn't show up anywhere, but just know that it is there, and it should be on every chart. It takes a lot of time to do that every quarter, by the way. So you know, it doesn't always change dramatically, but sometimes there'll be some changes that are worth calling out there.
yes, thank you.
like the ones that show what people are getting.
Well, that's it for the charts that I wanted to run through with you. And, you know, if you have, again, any questions, fire away, and any comments would be fine.
Chuck,
Mhm.
there's a question in the room. Which chart would you use with buyers?
Buyers? I'm trying to see if I can get to something here quickly.
Somebody who probably doesn't want to make, you know, the market of the moment offer. Let's just
Sure,
put it that way.
yeah. There is a buyer set of charts that are in the toolkit. Let me see, I don't know if I can get to those quickly or not, but let me do that, because in most cases the charts are the same. Let me see if I can find that quickly here. Buyers, there we go.
Like the one you showed before, which shows the percentage of sellers who are getting at 100% or more, and the price ranges. That's a good one.
That was one that, yeah, I think it's important for sellers to understand that now. And if they've probably heard it by this point, you know, the media and all of the publicity on how much prices are changing and what have you, but to see it actually in a percentage form can sometimes really bring it home. You know, you can see, wow, you know, almost 3/4 of them are going for at or above the asking price. So it looks like that's what I'm going to have to do to get this green box house. This is, we can kind of go through what I thought when I was going through this might be helpful in going through with a buyer. And I'll just kind of quickly go through and not talk about all of them, but this, of course, shows the areas that we cover, the metro area, what we call the metro area at this point. This is an old chart, giving names to some of these charts. This is called the American Idle chart. And the reason is it's the gray bars that are shown here are the active listings, and they go way back to 2009 because we're showing what's taken place in the market and why we're so different now than where we used to be. So the gray bars are the active listings. And the short
Chuck,
red-
we're not seeing that one.
Oh, did I get off? Uh-oh, how do I?
No, you have to share, I guess you have to stop share this one and then
Resume
share the
share.
other. If you're in a different,
I got it. Does that do it or not?
now we're still seeing the total failed listings percentage.
Does this
Do
show
you
up?
do you have your American Idol on a different screen?
Okay, so you can see the American Idol chart?
No, not yet.
Not yet? Ah,
So you have to stop sharing what you were showing us before and then share the American Idol chart.
okay, so I stopped sharing. Now I share again.
Different desktop.
That do it?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yay!
Yeah. Now we're seeing the American Idol chart.
Wow,
Everybody
okay,
wants to
good.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I guess the red, where did I stop? The red bars are the sales every month, and the gray bars are the number of active listings during that same month. So the American Idol name came from the gray bars are the people who think they can sing, and the red bars are the ones who can sing and go to Hollywood. So that was kind of a way to label a chart and be able to talk about it afterwards. And the squiggly black line that goes across all of it is the supply based on the sales and active listings. So this chart shows you where we are in terms of supply and why the market is as active as it is.
Yeah.
There are very few gray bars over on that 2021 side, which is the far right. Very few gray bars, you can hardly see them. And the red bars are actually higher than the gray bars, which means there are more sales taking place than there are active listings, which is kind of interesting, and that can't go on too long or you run out of houses. So, you know, we're in a situation that's extremely unusual and a very fast-paced market as a result of it. So buyers need to get that impression as they go out and start looking at properties. You don't have time on your side if you find a good listing that's ready, that meets your objectives.
Yeah. And this is perfect because it goes from 2009. And so they can see when somebody says, I want a bargain, then just flip this chart out and said 2009, I could have found you a bargain. But look what's happening right now in 2021. There are no gray bars at all.
You can hardly see them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
This is the American Idol chart.
That's one I think is useful, at least to kind of give a mindset to a buyer of the kind of market that we're in, and shows a little bit of the history behind, you know, how we got here. This one is the one I showed before, which again is just a kind of a level set that says the market is doing well, prices are higher, days on market are lower, and the things that we talked about earlier. Again, an overview for a buyer that says, here's the market we're in Atlanta at this point in time. Price reductions, I think, are good to talk about with a buyer. And the reason being that everybody wants a bargain if they can find one. And this would show you that there are probably going to be fewer of those now, because we're not seeing a lot, you know, price reduced properties typically offer some opportunity to a buyer to come in and give a less than asking price offer and have a chance of having it accepted. When you're in a very low price reduction market, the chances are less, but you can still find them. I mean, there's still 14% of the listings, you know, that sold had to go through a price reduction. So it's not a hopeless thing for the bargain hunter. If you want to look for those, they're out there. The other side of that coin is if they haven't gone through a price reduction, your chances are not too good of getting an offer accepted under full price based on what we're seeing happening across the market. Again, that's what that chart would show. This one kind of steps through all of that. Again, the use of this chart, which we call it the game board chart. But the reason I would show this to a buyer, again, is if you're looking for a price reduction, a lower price, a house that you can put in a lower price offer on, that bottom left box is the best shot you got at it, because they've been listed multiple times, they've had price reductions, they've got to be getting a little jaded in the market at this point, and may be more receptive to a less than full price or asking price offer. So there are some, they're not as many as there used to be, but you can find some. If you go looking for that through MLS, you can, look in the history area from FMLS, and you can find some that have meet that criteria. And on the other hand, there again, the green box house, you don't have time on your side, and you need to consider, making offers that may be above the asking price in order to win that bid. And you're probably going to be dealing with multiple offers. So again, using the same charts, but slightly different wording with the person you're talking to. And the same here, again, basically saying that, the green box houses are ones that you have to be geared toward making multiple, higher priced offers on. This one is just in case you're comparing an area against another. I think I mentioned this when we were on it before. Gives you a way to compare some of the basic measurements for across a couple of different areas, or even across a couple of price ranges if you're getting into, some borderline pricing where you're close to 300 and maybe above it or slightly below it. You can take a look at the stats for each of those, again, for a given area. And again, this is the one I think we talked about already, which is showing how many actually sold above original list price. So those are some of the charts I think I would use with a buyer. There could be some others that I'm not thinking of at the moment, but in the quarterly report, I think there's about 85 charts in there right now. And by the way, you don't ever show all 85 charts to anybody. And we probably never show them to you in the office either, but know that they're there, and there's a reason for all of them to be there. They're either they meet a specific need that someone has or a specific situation that caused us to do the chart and put it into the material. One of the things we talked about a little bit, I didn't show in any of these charts, are seller paid closing costs. And that typically has been running of the closings that take place. It's been running, depending on the time period, between 60 and maybe 75% of the closings will have some seller paid closing costs. So again, that's something that could be even included with the buyer package, saying that, if you want to ask for closing costs, it's something that sellers have been willing to do as part of the negotiations.
Except we don't see a lot of those in certain price points, Chuck.
Well, surprisingly, they're everywhere. Yeah, they reduce. There are fewer of them at the million plus, but they're there. Yeah, it is surprising to see how many there are. I was a little surprised at it myself. And it's been very consistent in the 60, overall in the 60 to 75% range.
Thank you, Chuck, Master Chuck.
Okay.
Yes, we really appreciate this today, and we've got some more clarity on how to just have conversations around the charts.
Let me make one last comment.
Yes.
One of the things that there are a few agents that are doing, and I think feel that it's very successful for them, and that is when the quarterly report comes out, the main report, the detached report in particular, they get it printed and bound. Go to FedEx, Kinko's, and they pay, the discounted, Keller Williams gets a discount there. Get the thing printed up. Right. Not that you're going to show all those charts to anybody, but when they go on a listing call, they put it down on the desk in front of them and say, you know, I'm going to talk about some things about the market, and this is the source. This is where it comes from. And we get this every quarter. And, you know, this is how I know what's going, keep track of what's going on in the market. And then you use whatever specific charts you want to pull out of that in your actual presentation. But it's been pretty successful for some people just in saying, you know, we've got a lot of market knowledge that other companies, other agents will not have. And even if you're going up, for example, in a listing call against another Keller Williams agent that doesn't use the stuff, you've got an advantage.
Absolutely. Yep,
Thank you.
thank you.
You're welcome.
All
Take care,
right,
guys.
have a great day. Say hello to your wifey.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye. Oh, no, there they are.
Can you text you back?
I know, I'm trying to.
There.
Oh, right, leave, okay.
Look, I'm here right.